Hey, welcome to Bowls and Beers. This is the heir apparent show to Last Bowl In and the very short-lived Bowl Chat. Dave pulled this group together under the flag of Last Bowl In, but he decided to move out of somebody's basement and stop blogging. So it's now down to Conrad, Matt, John, and I. I slide over.
Welcome to Bowls and Beers. This is the heir
I
apparent
slide over
show
to Dave's
to Last
slot.
Bowl In, and the
And I think I
very short-lived
have
Bowl Chat.
something up I shouldn't have.
Dave pulled this group together under.
Does
the
someone
flag
have the
of
page
Last Bowl
open?
In, but he decided to.
Okay. So I slide over the Dave spot, and that's a slight upgrade. I'm a little younger, a little better looking, a little smarter, a lot taller. John slides over into the Tim slot, which is a huge upgrade in so many ways that John can get into later. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to kind of ditch the format that we had. We tried to cobble together like a serious exposition into covering Buffalo football, and not there's not a serious bone among us when it comes to this stuff, which this is supposed to be fun. So it's going to be a lot more free flowing. We're going to plan what we talk about in advance, but it may not be the same thing every week. The other big change in format is that we will have no guest bloggers unless the perfect guest blogger falls out of the sky and asks to come on. Dave and myself spent a lot of time last year trying to harangue people into coming in. And what we usually ended up with was some very tired, uninformed college student in a very dark room that you couldn't see, who knew nothing about UB, who barely knew anything about their own team. There were probably about 3 bloggers worth the time to talk to in the 2 years we did that. And so with that, let's talk about who we are returning. We are returning Conrad, who is our Hawaii office. Conrad had a little trouble getting up the lift today. John was on early with me. John is a UB senior in engineering. I had thought he was a grad student, but John is going back to get that degree, this one here. And we have Matt, who is our resident Olympic guy / knows everything in the department I don't know. And he was last year in Buffalo, connected to a lot of things. Now he's in D.C., so he's going to struggle kind of covering things remote. So with that, let's just jump right in and talk about, this was kind of one crazy summer, and the summer kind of kicked off in the late spring with the West Club, and I think John wanted to kind of talk about his impressions on what that is and what that means for those of you who don't know what it is. So, John?
All right, thanks, Tim. Probably to get started, I'll start with a few facts before getting to my opinion. So facts and then opinions. So for people who are unaware or have completely forgotten, like seemingly everyone did after rabbling about it for, I don't know, like 2 or 3 days after it was announced, the West Club was announced at the Bulls Barbecue Bash, and there was a big lead up to it, and there was going to be a big announcement, and we were speculating what it would be. We all thought it was going to be East Club related. Then we kind of got the rug pulled out from underneath us, and they just flipped it to the other side of the stadium. The West Club would be 400 premium seats, and they did that for a couple of reasons. Primarily, they only got about 300 commitments to the East Club, so they wanted it to be, they wanted to fit to the demand. So there's only going to be 400 seats there. And it'll be an easier construction-wise. The infrastructure's there on that end of the field. So there was a lot of give and take with it. There were some people that were excited about it, some people that I know we saw in the comments on some of the posts that absolutely hated it and were ready to tear Danny White's head off because they lost their seats. And obviously the pros with it, you're having a new revenue stream, which I did the short math, and assuming all the seats are filled, UB's generating about a new $500,000 a year in new revenue. So money's everything. UB needs it, and that's a $500,000 they didn't have before. And it's a project they can get done. It's going to be ready for September 5th against UAlbany. It'll be done and ready, and they'll get butts in the seats. And it's a pseudo upgrade, I'll call it that, to the UB Stadium experience. It's an upgrade in the fact that we didn't have luxury boxes before, but the fact remains that I've been at UB Stadium for the past 3 years, and it's not great. I really wish they would have gotten rid of the track first and lowered down the field. That's just what I think about that. The biggest thing is they're displacing some of the people who have been buying season tickets the longest, and the problem with that is, like, most of the people that are there, they're not really deep in the pockets, and they're there because it's inexpensive and they can go and have a good time. But in the end, the department needs they need to improve and move forward. And it really sucks to kind of say this, but to them, most of us are just numbers on a spreadsheet, and the bottom line is they need to make money. And how are they going to do that? The premium seating. So it's really split right down the middle. I'm not one of the ones that lost. I'm sure if I had had a seat in the 200 levels on the west side and got my seat taken away after being there for nearly a decade, yeah, I'd be pretty pissed off too, just like a few of our commenters were. But Danny White and his team, they're doing their jobs, and that's about it. They need to better the fan experience, and it does that to a certain extent, but not to the extent that it enhances the experience around the whole stadium, which is what they really need to focus on.
Okay, so devil's advocate for the group. I sit kind of on where you were, General. They got to make changes. They got to upgrade that stadium. Conrad, I think, has called it the white elephant gift from New York State to Buffalo, because it's very ill-suited for football. So they're trying to make lemon out of lemonade. Here they're moving and upgrading the press box, which John will be able to enjoy when he covers games for us this fall. What could Danny White have done better? If you're like me and you think, look, this has to happen, it stinks for the people who are losing their seats, how would you have done it better to accommodate them, if possible?
If I were to do it, if I was in Danny White's shoes, I probably would have sent notice earlier, and not have made it such a big, such a big lead up to it. Another is probably have some sort of incentive ready and planned. I know from some people that talked to him, there wasn't anything about a relocation or discounted tickets, anything like that. I probably would have put something together to discount the tickets or give them men's basketball tickets, something to sweeten the deal for them. That would have been my plan.
All right, so the West Club's kind of how the summer kicked off, and the summer unfortunately ended with the Justin Moss story, which, to my knowledge, still hasn't reached its ultimate conclusion. Moss, for those of you who have been living under a rock, was involved in taking some property from dorm rooms, and that property belonged to football players. He returned the property, but given the fact he was on probation for an incident 2 years ago, the very real threat of being expelled from the university is sitting on top of him. I don't have too much to add fact-wise to the story. I said everything I wanted to say on Bull Run. If this was any other student who was a senior 6 credits away, I would bury the kid under so much community service he would hate that the next quarter, but he would be able to finish his degree, and I would leave it at that. And then if he wants to stick around another semester and do sports, that's what I would do. The only thing that really annoyed me is the general anti-NYBI-ness that came out in this. This had nothing to do with Director White or the culture he's built around the department. This is a department that, of course, saw scandal in the 90s, which I believe just finally resolved in court after 15 years of litigation. Scandals happen. It's unfortunate. This is actually a relatively minor scandal. I mean, I think Moss's part in it constituted less than $90, but that's what a source told me. I haven't read the police report myself yet. I just hope that all of this mess straightens itself out one way or another, and folks can start to concentrate on the season coming, and the kids can start to concentrate on their classes, which are coming next week, as John will tell you. And so that's how the season ended. Conrad, I think, has some interesting stuff on an article on USA Today, and for those of you who don't know, Conrad has worked, and does work a lot with college athletics, with financing, with students, and he's going to be more informed on the subject of full cost of attendance than pretty much anyone you'll run into in the blogosphere, at least in the amateur blogosphere. So we had a brief back and forth offline today about it, and I'm sure he wants to fill in on what, oddly, we agree on for a change. It's up to you, Conrad.
Yeah, so I think the USA Today article was just showing what certain schools were paying for cost of attendance, and it had a quote from a freshman. They asked him what he was going to spend his money on, and he said, I'm an Xbox guy, and that he's going to probably look at what games he's going to be able to buy. And I think it's funny. I think the media is probably going to throw out the freshmen and have them talk about what they're going to blow their money on. And I think the athletic departments are going to bring out the seniors and have them talking about paying for law school applications and taking care of their families and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be somewhere in between the two. And so I definitely saw an article on the Moss situation that I'm not sure. I thought it was mocking stipends, but it might have been genuine. You can't tell online. But I do think, actually, even if I think, I wrote it in the comments, but there are three types of people: the people who are going to steal no matter how much money they have, the people who are going to, who are going to take money when they think they need it, and the people who are never going to take money even if they desperately needed it. And at least for that second group of people who feel like when they need it, they have to get it by any means necessary. If they have a little bit extra to hold them over, they won't get to that desperate place where they do something that's a bad decision, either illegal or against NCAA rules, like working with boosters or something like that. So I think it's a good thing. The difficult thing is how they're going to implement it, and how we're going to pay for it. If we can barely get our stadium upgraded, it's going to be rough to put money into more for scholarships.
Well,
I don't actually
$500,000 a year help with that. I mean, I think maybe, like John said, this is a revenue stream.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's planning on, if that all went back into student athletes, that's a little rough. I mean, I think it's a tough pill to swallow for the fans, because we've been sitting in that stadium for years and hoping for upgrades, and when it's November and it's snowing and there's a couple of fans who are inside and everyone else is outside freezing, it's not going to be great, but otherwise I think it's a good step. And in the USA Today article, Buffalo did not have a response about how much they're paying, but there were MAC schools there. Bowling Green, I think, was there. Ohio, I think, was there. So
Ball State, I think, was at $800,000. I mean, Ball State led the MAC of the schools who replied.
And unfortunately, for all the things that the NCAA does, and they say they don't want to make it an arms race, and they don't want to make it, about uneven playing field. If I was Ball State, I'd have this article in, and I'd have it on every student athlete's desk and say, this is what we're committing to, and not just football. I think a lot of people, you don't have to do every sport. So a lot of people will do football and basketball only, because they're the big competitive sports. But some other program is going to say women's soccer. We're giving it to women's soccer too. We're giving it to baseball too. We're giving it. So I think it's going to be a big competitive thing for the next couple of years until every school kind of settles on where they're going to be. So I look forward to hearing publicly what Buffalo is going to do. So, and hopefully they're doing something. Cost of living.
Do we think the NCAA is going to get this right in the next 5 years? Is this going to be like a trip and fall process where eventually they're going to kind of put this under Title IX and say you got to do women's sports as much as you do men's sports, and you have to have some kind of control so that I think the one example in the article you sent, Conrad, was someone said, how do we know they're not just going to fly lobsters to the SEC school and make that part of their cost of attendance?
Yeah. I think a lot of it is out of the hands of the athletic departments in the financial aid office. I've set cost of attendance budgets before, and they usually want to keep it down because that's the budget that goes into the paper. When they say, oh, UB costs $30,000, and when someone wants to write in and say it cost $5,000 when they were younger, that's the number they get mad about. So when I always do it, deans and directors wanted me to keep the number down. As a financial aid officer, I want to put the number up. It gives us flexibility. You don't have to take the money in the cost of attendance. I think it's always best to educate students on how to manage their money and then not have a cap where I can't help them if they actually have an emergency they need help. But it's going to be interesting. I think whenever you throw athletics in there and the NCAA in there, it becomes a lot more complicated, and I think they're just going to – I think maybe in the past they would have been more cautious, but with the autonomy the Power 5 has to make decisions, the Power 5 is not going to be more cautious because they can afford to make mistakes and then fix them later. So I think we're going trial and error for the next 3 or 4 years and then figure out where maybe in 4 or 5 years we'll have a system that is clear and works.
So I said you also wanted to feed into the Moss situation. I know you had said at the time, maybe this is a cost of attendance thing. We wouldn't see this, and I understand your point was you weren't being specific. You were making a hypothetical case for things like this that happen throughout college athletics. But there were a couple of other guys that were involved in the Moss situation. I believe Raheem Johnson was one. Who was the other player involved? Did the news reveal that?
Maury Diani.
Okay. There were a couple other players involved. I think the reason they haven't caught the attention Moss has caught is this is Moss's second offense while as a student at UB, and it's their first. All three of these guys did play for Oates at high school, right?
Johnson and Moss did. Diani didn't. Diani is from the Detroit area.
So does anyone else have anything they want to kick in on the Moss situation, or we can finally put that one to bed as kind of talking about it?
I just want Moss to be treated like I would. If I was the one that stole that money, I would just want him to be treated and punished the same way that another student like me. I think you mentioned it earlier, and I can't see how he's going to get a fair shake with all the media attention on it. Once I saw the Buffalo News posted their article, which I know that's their job, that's what they have to do, but I was kind of bummed out about it because now he has all this outside pressure, all this outside media attention, and I can't help but think that that's going to have some sort of influence over the process, which I know it shouldn't, but it might.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, we actually were sitting on that story for about a week. Someone, a reader, had reached out to one of the editors, and then when we ran a fact check, I sent some emails out to people, and I got some quick responses, and some pretty specific confirmations of stuff that later on vetted out to be true. We were sitting on it because we didn't, like John said, we didn't want to be part of the story. We wanted the Moss process to go through as if he were any other student, which would be hard enough as it is. It's going to be even harder now that the news is watching, and you have a lot of people you have people on one side who want him to be treated lighter, not too many. You have people on the other side who want to make an example. And I do know from a secondhand source that the one thing that the athletics department is concerned about is that some people with an axe to grind are going to want to make an example of Moss rather than treat him like they would treat any other student 6 credits away from graduating for taking $90. You know, you're going to ruin the kid's life for $90. I can't say strongly enough how much I would object to that for any kid at UB, be they an athlete or not. And that is the end of, I think, our Moss discussion. I'm grateful for it. I'm sure we'll have an article when and if something else comes up regarding his appeal. We can talk about something happy now, which is UB soccer. I know Matt wanted to talk about UB soccer happenings over the summer.
Oh, yeah. That's a relatively quick thing. I just wanted to point out that we're going to talk in a moment, I'm sure, about UB's professional alumni in all their sports leagues, which is something that we talk about weekly over the summer when there's less news. The NFL guys, the guys in pro baseball. Something that's unique around soccer is that many collegiate athletes do play in amateur leagues over the summer, and UB for the last couple of years has steadily had more and more there. And I don't have a lot to say. I didn't dig up tons of stats and things, but UB men's soccer had a good number of guys competing this year. They once again had 4 guys on FC Buffalo, which is the local semi-pro team in Western New York, and that exists outside of the professional pyramid of U.S. soccer, but it's kind of on an even keel with the other amateur soccer. And the 4 guys for UB that competed kind of got different amounts of time. Fox Slotmaker, who started every game or all but one game for UB at center back in the middle of the defense last year as a freshman, played nearly every game for FC Buffalo. Scott Doney, who you'll be hearing his name a lot this fall, both from John and I on the Olympic podcast and when we give quick updates here. Big-time transfer. He played a couple games, scored a couple goals. Austin Place didn't do so much. And there was one other and Cameron Hogg, the goalie, got a couple minutes in. That's with FC Buffalo. Those guys stayed local. The big name for anybody who knows maybe one bit of information with men's soccer is Russell Cicerone. He's the star. He's coming in his junior season. He's already got 16 goals in his career with Buffalo. He had been with FC Buffalo the summer before and was named to the All-NPSL across the country to their best 11 team. This year he moved to the Professional Development League, which is that other parallel league in amateur soccer, to the Michigan Bucks, who were the defending national champions there. And he scored 8 goals, 9 goals in 11 or 12 games. He did not play every game for the season. And had he played the whole season, would have probably been in the top 5 of scoring for the entire country within that structure. His team, Michigan Bucks, did not repeat as national champions, but they did make it to the quarterfinals of the tournament there. He played with some really talented guys who had both been with Michigan for a bit and play in other college teams around the country. The other UB men's player who I want to highlight is Nikolai Netsker, who with Seattle Sounders U23 team was also in the Professional Development League. And they advanced to the Final Four there. I don't think he got much time at all, but he spent the summer within the farm system, maybe not the farm system isn't quite right, but within the oversights of the Seattle Sounders, who are a very long, well-established, there's an MLS team, Sounders. They have a National Women's Soccer League team. They've got a developmental system in place, and so Netsker got some time up there. On the women's side, obviously, there's a lot less developed, but a handful of women's players who I won't start to list because I don't know them all played for the Empire Revs, which is just a New York level team. I don't know how they did. But as we talk about pro alumni, I wanted to highlight that a bunch of soccer guys and gals got some work in, and those 2 teams start the season earlier than anyone else, so you're going to be learning their names sooner than anyone else other than football this fall. And I guess I'll hit John Jones as well, too, while you're letting me talk. John Jones has graduated from UB, which is a big bummer, but he did get us a national championship, our first Division I national championship. I wouldn't want John to correct me. Before he left, it closed out the 2014-15 year was John Jones winning a national championship in NCAA shot put. Over the summer, he's kept competing. He entered into the U.S. championships, US ATF championships. After his junior season, he had finished 6th or 7th in that, had been the highest finishing collegian. This year he was once again the highest finishing collegian, finishing 5th place in the U.S. Championships, and that's not professional. That's just every shot putter in the country. He missed the chance at Worlds. He would have been eligible for Worlds had he finished in the top 3 there, but he missed his shot at Worlds. So he was able to represent the U.S. at the Pan American Games. Didn't really have a good day there. Has since won an international competition in the Caribbean, some sort of continental championship. We're probably going to have fewer updates on him than we did this summer going forward, just because there will be fewer competitions, and he's at some point has to rest and heal his knees. That's John Jones. He's graduated from UB. He joins those ranks of professional guys, who will still update because why not? We've got the space on the blog, and that's what I've got. So
I have to ask a question that just came up here. Is it shot putter or shot putter?
I don't know.
Shot put just sounds like a super league for putt putt. So I don't know. I mean, but your grasp of the English language is far superior to my own. So.
I think that Jones would be pretty good at putt putt.
Well, we know he can throw the ball really dang far.
Yes. Yeah.
And with that, I'll give a quick update on professional sports because during the summer, there's not a lot more to follow. Unless you're really like this year was an odd year with so much track and field in the summer. You had the Pan Am Games, you had the games in Central America, you had our steeplechaser. I'm sorry, I forget his name, running over in Germany. You had swimming, but in the pros we had some hoops news. We have McRae moving to France. We had Watt did a stint with the Toronto Raptors this preseason. That didn't last long. He ended up in Germany. The big news in baseball is that Tom Murphy got a silver at the Pan American Games. He got promoted to AAA Albuquerque, and he is just crushing the ball there. I honestly believe there is a chance he sees the 40-man roster this year if he keeps hitting the ball like he is. He will definitely be a candidate for the 40-man roster next year. And by the way, sneaky Steve Geltz under the radar, 1 inning at a time, 1 game at a time, is leading the major leagues in appearances right now, and I think it's not even close. I think he's pretty far ahead of everyone else. He should end the season leading. Up north, Canadian football is already in swing, even though the NFL's in preseason. Drew Willie was having himself a heck of a year. He is now injured, may miss a good portion, if not the rest of the year. EJ's looking good in Ottawa. Nete AJ is finally hitting the field for Toronto, and he's becoming a reliable slot back for them. And Naaman Roosevelt and Jake Silas are on the practice squads for, I think, Ottawa and Saskatchewan. In the NFL, Brandon Oliver, Cleo Mack, and James Starks are all going to end up on their rosters, probably seeing a lot of playing time. Guys on the bubble would be Josh Thomas up here in Minnesota, up my way. Stephen Means is not a bubble player, but now that he's injured, he might be on the bubble in Baltimore. Unfortunately, Jake Shum was just cut. And Christian Sicoli will make the roster because he was drafted this year and he's a project. But given how he had a couple really bad plays his first game, I don't know if he'll end up seeing the roster, end up seeing the field or not this season. And that's kind of what I've been doing during the summer, just watching the stuff in the pros like I do every summer, because I just can't bring myself to care about professional sports outside of how UB has impacted it. And that brings us to the last thing we're going to talk about tonight, which would be, 3 years into the Danny White tenure? Where do you think, is it 3 or 4?
He got here, he was hired the May before my freshman year, so his first fall semester was my first fall semester on campus.
Right, so he's entering year 4. Okay. So with White entering year 4, what's your kind of take on the status of UB athletics? Like, where do you think we are? What do you think White's moved us? Do you think we've moved despite White's? Or where are we going? What are the big accomplishments and the big to-dos? Conrad, you usually are a good perspective guy. What do you think?
Oh man, I'm not used to this. I'm clicking the wrong mute button. It's been a while. Um, well, I'm at a point where we had about as good as a season as we could have had last year. And it reminds me of 2008. 2008, we had the MAC championship in football, and then that spring went to the basketball final, MAC final, and that was almost as good as it got. And then it got pretty bad after that. And Ward, for all the good he did, he didn't. I don't think he had us going in the right direction when he left. So that kind of worries me because I don't know if you hit your high note and then you start looking for your next job and you kind of let what's going on coast. And I don't know if we've hit that point with Danny White. But when you look at it, it's a little questionable. You got a football coach who 2 years ago was playing Buffalo State, not Buffalo University or whatever you want to call it. And 2 years ago, we have a basketball coach who was coaching high school. So that's your two big sports that are going to carry the rest of the program, and it's in pretty inexperienced hands. Everyone loves the Lance Leipold hire, and if it works out, it's going to be great. If it fails, it's going to be everyone's going to be laughing and saying, "How did you think you can go from a D3 coach and win?" So it's a lot of risk, and I think we were, maybe me more than anyone, wanted Oates here for continuity after all we went through after Reggie leaving and all the Hurley nonsense, and so I think they're good selections, but they're huge high-risk selections. They could fail, and once they start to turn ugly, like what's his name, Jeff Quinn start to turn, I think there's that point where, as an AD, I think where you fire him and you have an indictment on your own hiring your own hiring ability. You leave him up there, you're saying he's going to turn around while you're applying for your next job, and you don't have to actually worry about the aftermath. So I think we're kind of at that weird place where things go good, then great, but if things start to go bad, I start to worry if we're gonna languish in years that we can't talk about while the AD kind of thinks of his exit strategy.
Sorry, we wouldn't have that silence if I hadn't told Tim to turn off his TV.
Yeah, dead air, Matt. I blame that dead air on you.
I'm being petty, but I didn't. There was someone on the TV I didn't want to look at, so I'm being petty.
So my thing with you completely wrecked my train of thought here. My thing with what Conrad said on Oates was, I think we all kind of agreed. Like, I think we were all on board with Oates. I was very happy when Oates was picked. You all remember my photoshopping ball and Oates back when I had Photoshop my machine. But given what's happened since, how much continuity have we had? We ended up losing 3-4 players. We may lose Moss. I mean, continuity's gone. There's no doubt Oates knows basketball. He wasn't just a high school coach, just like Lance Leipold was not a D3 coach. These are both extremely successful individuals at their levels. And to Lance Leipold's credit and to Danny White's credit, I was very skeptical when coach came in, Dan Iannello, who did not have a very good experience at Akron. But UB's recruiting this year has been probably Rob Iannello, thank you, has been probably as good as any time I can remember in terms of winning recruiting battles. I sit back and you never know who you're going to recruit. Khalil Mack was a nobody. We didn't beat anybody for Khalil Mack except Liberty, and he ended up being the best player we've ever had. So, but I do like seeing every player we've won battles against.
Yeah, I'd like in now. I think first thing on Oates, when it comes to continuity, I think if Oates couldn't keep those guys, nobody could. So there was a moment where
if nobody could, then was it worth Oates? I'm not second guessing here. I'm just saying though. I agree. You kept Oates to keep the players, but it didn't work.
I'm sorry. I'm just gonna say, when I say continuity, I'm not 100% just about keeping the players, but not bring in a new system, not a new identity, not some guy who wants to delete the past and say this is my team. That's what I care more about. So I'm still happy with those. I'm gonna let you.
Yeah, that's I mean that's pretty much where I got to. There was a point in early summer where I was, well, what now these guys are gone, and that's what I thought Oates was hired quickly for. But I'm happy to have him. It seems like he's going to run a similar style to Hurley, and he's someone who's been in the program, and and I agree that I've gotten to that point myself. On recruiting, I don't really have much new to say than what Tim said, but I think John told me the other day that if we kept recruiting guys at this pace, everybody but one of our current list of commitments in football has a 3-star ranking from either 24/7 or Scout. 24/7 is the best, Scout is the worst of the different agencies, but they're still giving them 3 stars. John pointed out to me that if we kept that up, our class would compare favorably with PJ Flex at Western Michigan. And I have not gone and looked into the data here on this, so Conrad, if this bothers you, I apologize because I just don't know. But I would almost bet that we could pull in all 2 stars the rest of the way and still have a class that compares favorably to that Darius Willis, James Potts class that Turner Gill brought in, that we ended up losing most guys to transfers anyway when Turner Gill left. That said,
Why don't you bring that class up by Willis and Potts, though, because those guys didn't accomplish a whole lot at UB.
Mm-hmm. No, I know, and that's even before they left. I think, I think this class already, even if we just pulled in a bunch of 2 stars as we had in the past, with maybe 1 or 2 3 stars of the rest, would compare favorably to that group in terms of high school accolades. Something I really want to talk about when we think about the state of UB athletics is recruiting on the whole, from basketball and football down to rowing and women's tennis, I think has taken a big leap forward. And I think scheduling has taken a big leap forward too. Not necessarily in saying what makes a good schedule. It depends on where a program is in the lifespan of a contender and things like that. But you saw softball go to California for a week this past year. Men's soccer is going to Texas for a weekend. Money is being spent on recruiting and scheduling and getting the teams out to places where they can get in front of more faces across the board in athletics. And I think that's really good. You see recruits coming in. I harp on this every time I talk about recruits, but UB is leveraging its connection to Canada more frequently, which is great because there is no FBS school that is closer to Canada, and there's no FBS school that's closer to Toronto, which is one of the 5 great population centers in North America, really. And there's not a lot of football players coming out of, there's not a lot of athletes at all other than runners and volleyball players coming out of Mexico City. On the whole, there's recruiting happening everywhere. Leipold and his staff are doing great at recruiting. I really think they're doing great at recruiting because they don't have to teach courses anymore. At Wisconsin Whitewater, they had to spend some time teaching classes and grading papers, and now they can devote themselves full-time to football. But this is not just limited to football when we talk about recruiting successes. All the teams are venturing into Southern Ontario more. Women's tennis pulled in a 3-star recruit from Puerto Rico that's going to be a freshman this year. It's happening all over the place. Women's basketball got a player from Europe to go with their Australian pipeline right now. Tommy Forte, I should let John talk about Tommy Forte. The name John means it's wrestling, but was a nationally ranked wrestler in high school, top wrestler in Indiana. He's going to be a freshman at UB this year. It's not just Leipold. It's across the board. There's a lot more being done on those parts of UB's visibility too that doesn't fall under the NYBI banner. The coaches are getting out there. They're getting bigger names. They're getting their teams to play in new regions, get themselves in front of more faces. I won't even start to talk about swimming's recruiting, but it's happening across the board. It's not just football.
Let's let John hype Tommy Forte and talk about what he thinks of UB athletics right now.
All right, yeah. Tommy Forte is he was one of the, I think he was ranked, 7th or 6th in his weight class his senior year. So he's one of the top wrestlers in the nation. We got him. Another kid, his name is Nate Rose, and he's an incoming freshman as well. He comes from the Bronx. He's originally from Trinidad and Tobago. And like Matt said, the whole recruiting internationally thing. Rose he's competing on the international level for Trinidad and Tobago. He was a bronze medalist at the Pan American Championships, which is a qualifying event for the Pan American Games, which for some reason he didn't compete there, which he could have. And he's also going to the World Wrestling Championships in Las Vegas this fall. And if he places top 6 there, he has a chance to go to the Rio Olympics. And I looked at the Trinidad and Tobago National Wrestling Team's Facebook page, and basically everything they post about is Nate Rose. So we literally have a country's best athlete on one of our teams. Now it might only be Trinidad and Tobago, but still, it's something. Like Matt said, we're getting out there more internationally. I know women's tennis has a bunch of international recruits. Women's basketball especially has a bunch of international recruits. And as a student at UB, the recruits that we're bringing in fit more of the diversity on campus, because I go out on campus, I have classes with people that are from all around the world, and now our athletes are starting to reflect the international community that is the students at UB. About the athletics department on a whole, when I came in my freshman year, I saw Alex Zordich for the majority of the football season until Joel Cotta took over, and then I actually got excited towards the end of the season. My first game on campus, I believe, was the Morgan State game, and I remember at one point I went to the west side of the stadium, and I was able to go right down to like the 100 levels, and I just grabbed a seat because literally no one was there, and it just wasn't really a great atmosphere. Same type of thing with basketball. I wasn't around for all the Reggie. I was here for 1 year of Reggie, and my other 2 years were Bobby Hurley. So the evolution of just football and basketball, I went from first year of football was really disappointing to a new high with going to a bowl game, and then extremely disappointing again. So it's been a real roller coaster for that. Hopefully, if the trend continues this year, it's going to be another high, and we're going to go to a bowl again. And basketball, I got to see the rise and fall of Bobby Hurley. I got to see UB go to their first ever NCAA tournament, and I've seen more in the last 2 years being on campus than probably than most students really ever have for UB athletics. And even this last year alone, I got to see 3 MAC championships get won between men's tennis, women's soccer, and men's basketball, as I mentioned. And for all the crap that people do give Danny White, the work that he's done, it's paid off. There are more people at games if you take the games from this past year, my junior year, compared to my freshman year, the attendance has skyrocketed. There's more people there. There's more media coverage. More people are caring about it. The Tailgate Concert series has been a pretty big hit. There have been acts that I've really enjoyed that I wanted to go see, and I got to see them for free, and then go watch a football game, which is always fun. So yeah, from a student perspective, it's getting better. It's gotten better since my first year. The point now is to keep improving on what we're doing to further incentivize for the students to go to the games, because especially with football, like my freshman year, when the team isn't winning, students aren't going to want to go to the games. That's just a fact. And I saw it my sophomore year. Once the team started winning, more people started going, and winning more or less cures all. So if they keep winning as a whole, I think the department is in pretty good shape moving forward.
All right. Well, that segment went a little longer than we wanted to. Not John's. I mean, all of us trying to up my Dave duties and keep us moving on schedule. We have a round table that we're going to try to do every week, which is where we come talk about just whatever. Did you see a funny fan post, a great article, a crappy article, or something you think is worth talking about? And I think we can all kind of settle in on the talk this week was long snapper wars. The Gatorade bottle heard around the world when Corbin Grassman went ahead and hit it off his head and then hit from the 300 deck at UB Stadium and was challenged by other MAC snappers. The summer was that hard to get through. That's what we're at. We're at long snapper wars. John, I know you had a big thing that you said offline that I've been quoting on Twitter over and over again. It's just stop trying to make Akron a thing. Akron's punter was the first one to challenge us, and by far the worst effort.
I'm going to interrupt this. No.
Go ahead.
Stop trying to make Akron a thing is a Conrad Mostiller original.
Oh, is it? Is it? Okay, all right. Conrad owns that. All right.
It's a year old. It's aged like cheese. It's not to interrupt you, but stop making Akron a thing. Has a long and proud history.
Now it's moved to UMass. Now UMass is...
Stop making UMass a thing. Okay.
Akron stole last summer.
But John had it as his thing to say, so that's why I thought it was a Johnism. I'm sorry, Connor. That's right. I do remember. That's been around a while. Connor, you want to talk about out-of-towners? That was your kind of roundtable topic.
Oh, yeah. I really liked that post. I'm blanking on who wrote it now.
Well, I think it was 121 Merrimack wrote it.
Yeah, okay. And, I've been out of town the whole time this blog has been on. I think that's the reason why it was created is because Tim is not in town and I'm not in town, and I think when Matt started he was not in town, and it's so difficult to get information, and even when you do get information to rely on Buffalo News, which is not the most reliable for UB stuff. I think we're good right now. We have a pretty good writer compared to some of the people who used to cover it and really didn't want to, and you could read the effort that they put into it. So I think it's awesome. I think when you go around and you're talking to other people in the sports world, they're amazed that UB has an SB Nation blog, because a lot of the small schools don't. They have those giant conglomerations where there's no real personality to it, and I think even when you look at the comments like on different forums, like when I'm off, I don't do as much as everyone else, but when I'm looking something down and I'm looking through forums, people are like, why don't we, like Toledo people are like, why don't we have an SB Nation blog? Like, I think it's a testament to the small group of people who are doing what we all did, which was looking for something, and a lot of us are out of town and we can't just go to UB Stadium, and a lot of the stuff goes over my head, so if I'm asking about things, I'm not sarcastic. I'm sarcastic about almost everything, but like I kept asking, like, what's the big deal about moving your seats from one side, from the west side to the east side, from the east side to the west side? I was actually inquisitive. I haven't stepped foot into the stadium in maybe 6 or 7 years. I don't actually know. But one thing I've always been big on is that I've never donated to UB, and I want to make sure that my donation goes to getting rid of the track and nothing else, and B, there's never been a benefit where I was like, oh, well, I'm getting something out of this. Like, I can put my $125 down, but I'm not going to use the season tickets. I'm not going to use the parking. I'm not going to use the priority pass to see some country guy sing a concert. So I'm not really going to use anything that are the benefits. So I've always thought, if they did something for me, like you have one ticket, go to the West Club and give us our $125, or you're coming in to a road game. We're going to have something set up where all the road fans are going to be there doing something. I think that is something they really need to look into, and I think the post was really about when you're coming back to Buffalo and when you're going to what you're going to do, and I think usually homecoming is when everyone will come back, but homecoming is just not a big deal at Buffalo. Maybe that's something they have to look into, making it a bigger deal. Or just, I think if it's just create a donor package that's not about tickets or parking, and that's something that I would enjoy. Send me a hat, a T-shirt, a DVD. Give me something for my money, and for all the other people who are far away but want to be connected. So yeah, that's my thought, and I think definitely keep up. I'm so far away, it's ridiculous right now, and I can't get back. I thought I was going to be able to get back, and I don't think I'm going to. So fan posts, fan shots, Twitter pictures, Instagram, like YouTube videos, Vines. I'm all over it on game day, and I want to see the experience and see what you guys are doing. It was great. We had Matt last year, so he was kind of the eyes and ears for the rest of the blog, and sometimes Dave. Maybe John will be able to do that now, but if everyone can kind of put what their experience out there, I lived through that. So keep it up.
John's press pass request has been submitted to the department, and we'll see what the disposition of that is. But along with the West Club, they're building a fancy new press box that John may get to sit in next year, not like the old one, which I heard horror stories about from Dave when he sat in it.
I didn't mind the press box, but I'm also pretty non-confrontational. I never made a fuss out of the fact they didn't have any vegetarian food options either. So I don't know. I just got to sit there and watch football. Now I've taken over, so I'm excited in this round. Very quick. One, something we haven't mentioned yet. I don't even think, John, we mentioned it on Sunday night, which was a terrible oversight of ours. But women's soccer's Jackie Hall, center back, middle of the defense, reigning MAC Defensive Player of the Year, has been named to the Herman Trophy watch list for 2015. The Herman Trophy in women's soccer is the equivalent of the Heisman, and Jackie Hall is one of 28 women on the list on the women's side, and I believe there are only 2 players, herself included, who are not from so-called BCS conferences. Obviously, that division doesn't exist in soccer, but schools with BCS football teams still have more money to spend on their soccer. So, hooray for Jackie. You all should know that. Women's soccer starts on Friday in Philadelphia. I'll be there. Super pumped. Women's soccer got John to think that soccer was worth watching, so that's awesome. You should know that about Jackie Hall. The other thing I want to say, as Conrad talks about kind of the conglomerate sites around SB Nation, I do write for Hustle Belt, mostly to make sure that we get accurate information when Buffalo comes up in one of their series. I just kind of claim the Hustle Belt posts. I was recently writing one on Joe Licata and doing some research, and I just want to point out, because people may not realize it, if Joe Licata throws 29 touchdowns again this year as he did in his junior year, which I don't think is that far-fetched given the returning weapons he has, he will finish his career as the number 5 all-time touchdown thrower in MAC history, one in front of a man named Byron Leftwich, who played at Marshall and then had a career in the NFL. But he made it to the NFL and was a starter. So I don't know if anybody else has signed up for football record watch posts this year, week to week. But if we do them, we've got to pay attention to Licata on the MAC list as well, because he's got a real good shot at getting up into Byron Leftwich, Keith Wenning territory when it comes to total touchdowns thrown.
And anytime you knock down an old MAC record of PAG, that's a good thing, especially when it's an old Marshall record. All right, so this is normally what used to be sign-offs, but right now it's just kind of, rather than giving someone a thumbs up, you just say whatever you want to say before we sign off, and I'll head to bed or hit the after party for the night. Conrad, you're up first. I see question marks on our prep sheet, but I'm sure you got something to say after all the talk.
We'll see. Well, I don't really have anything to say. I have been super out of the loop. Leipold really keeps things to the vest. I haven't heard. I kind of miss the gruff talk about how determined and how hard working we're gonna be, and how, I don't know. I kind of miss Quinn. I kind of miss Quinn. It's been so long. It's like even the worst girlfriend you've had is like you've been with her for a while, and you're just like, and then your friends are like, "What are you talking about? Do not call." But anyway,
it's like remembering that first apartment you lived in after college, where everything was broken and it was like in the middle of like a war zone. But you remember it fondly because it was your first apartment.
yeah, I don't know, but maybe I'm just I don't know. I haven't been keeping up, but I will. I have something planned, something big planned. I'm not going to say what it is, just in case I don't do it, because there are people watching out there who will hold me to everything. But I do hope to get really into the swing of football, and I'm really excited about it. So next week, I'm hoping to do my preview. I think the site is also doing another preview on their own, so there'll be 2 different previews, and hopefully don't overlap. And then the week after that, we're right into game week football coverage. If you can call it that, it's only Albany, so we might just skip the whole thing because it doesn't matter. But I'm really excited to get into that, so hopefully I can stop doing the countdown posts and just start doing actual football writing. So look forward to that.
Yeah, and as an editorial link, next week we'll be doing our football preview with this hour. Whether or not this hour falls on Monday or Tuesday is subject to all of our availability. We're going to try to keep it at about the same time, but the night might flex a bit through the season, which is, of course, in the spirit of Maction. Next up is John.
All right, mine's a little more heartfelt than Conrad's. This past week, my high school principal, Margaret Flowers, her son actually wrestled at UB and is actually part of the reason that I, kind of found out about UB and ultimately attended UB, and that's why I'm here. She passed away after a 7-year-long battle with breast cancer. So I kind of wanted to use this kind of as a final goodbye to her. She was an excellent woman, always had a smile on her face no matter what, and she had an endless optimism that probably will stick with me for the rest of my life. So Mrs. Flowers, if you're watching this or wherever you are, thank you for all that you've done, and we all miss you.
That's a hard one to follow. We all have those people who kind of have a big impact on our lives, and it's hard to see as we move on with our life as they move on. John, that is nice. Matt?
I don't have anything like that. I guess one, I was really stuck on a shout out for this first week. A minor one is I really would make a plea to Megabus to get me to Philadelphia on time this weekend, but I'm sure they will. And I guess my other one from this summer, as we've been out of touch, and I haven't had a chance to just drop whatever I'm thinking about on here, the Washington Nationals president's race, you may have heard of it. Minnesota has racing sausage, or Milwaukee is racing sausages, Pittsburgh is racing pierogies, the Buffalo Bisons race chicken wings and some celery and maybe a carrot. The Nationals race presidents, and it's a good group. It's Abe Lincoln, Teddy Roosevelt, George Washington, and William Howard Taft. And Thomas Jefferson. Taft came in later. Great. This summer they decided to add another one. And of the 39 other presidents still available, they went with Calvin Coolidge. And I just think that was a poor decision. I really have nothing more to say than that, but I don't think that Calvin Coolidge was particularly notable. Nor do I think that having Roosevelt and Taft and Coolidge makes for a very diverse president's race when it comes to stretching your period out. I think Franklin Roosevelt in his wheelchair would have been a great addition to the president's race. I think I think William Henry Harrison, who was only around for 90 days, would have been a great addition.
I was
to
going to
Presence
say
Race.
Harrison. Honest to God, I was going to say Harrison when you were done.
This is a Buffalo broadcast, so I think Grover Cleveland or Millard Fillmore would have been a great addition to Presence Race. JFK would have been great. Richard Nixon would have been great. Calvin Coolidge is not great. I hope that he hasn't won yet. I haven't even paid attention. But it took Teddy Roosevelt 3 years to win. It took Teddy Roosevelt 3 years to win. I hope that Calvin Coolidge takes longer because he doesn't belong in that race. That's what I've got.
All right, that sounds fun. Almost.
I'm
enough
really sorry, John. I'm really sorry to follow that up with that.
Yeah, you know, Matt, John comes in here with a very heartfelt thought about a meaningful person's life, and you talk about mascots running. That's my fault, everyone. I should have had John go last. I did not read everyone's shout-outs ahead of time. I would have rearranged them. I go last, unfortunately, for all of you. I'm just going to give you a quick one last shout-out to Dave, who's not here. I miss you, Dave. You kept this show at 45 to 50 minutes every single dang time. I mean, we'd start 20 minutes late because you couldn't work Google. But once we got started, it was 45 to 50 minutes. You paid attention for at least 10. You know, Dave, you got some hard shoes to fill. But I'm going to do my best. So I hope you're an audience member, and you are the one person we'll make an exception for if you decide to be a guest at some point in time. I'm awful at this.
Are you crying?
No, I'm not crying, honey. I'm trying not to laugh. And that's it for Bowls and Beers. The four of us are gonna hang around for the after party, and they're gonna savage me for failing at that segment. And you all will see you next week. Keep reading the site.